Hello, everyone. Oh, good. I was all by my lonesome a moment ago.
Yeah, we need to have David domination.
Oh, excellent.
Sorry, Jeff.
It's okay. He can change his name. Maybe it's his middle name.
I'm in another meetup, and there's like three different Davids that show up, and this ongoing joke. The meetup doesn't start until the Davids arrive. So
I see.
it's like, and we get into exactly what you're saying. So we get honorary Davids, which is
Excellent. Excellent.
it's a great name.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, Jeff, David, and David.
Yeah. We're just
Exactly.
talking about the taking over of the Davids.
Ah,
Amir, there's always an opportunity for you to change your name to David. Do we not have a lead for package feeds? I thought Caleb Brown was leading that. I mean, package analysis won't work without package feeds. I'm looking at the 56, the pull request. Okay, I guess we'll get into that in a moment.
yes, let's see. Oh,
It's quiet today.
hey, Jacques.
Yeah, I'm gonna apologize in advance. I have a conflict at 12:30 that I just found out about yesterday. I am here until I can't be.
Oh, we're happy to have you while we can, David.
Well, thank you. And I have scribbled notes in ahead of time.
Excellent, yeah.
But David, you're a critical open source project.
Oh, I hope not. If nothing else, that implies that I'm not a human, but but an AI. I had no idea our AIs were that advanced yet. Although maybe given my behavior, maybe not too advanced. Everybody, by the way, please throw your name into the list of attendees. I'm going to repost the URL here.
Sorry, Mihai, I accidentally threw off your attendance there.
Yeah, we track this, by the way, for those of you who don't know. Basically, we're trying to make sure that all working groups have representation from multiple different organizations and like people are showing up. So, and frankly, I find it helpful to know, oh yeah, this is so we're at this meeting and I don't remember exactly what this is all about, but I know that person was there. So I know that we're also recording, but It's awful handy just to have the list. Oh, actually, are we recording?
So because
Yeah, we are recording.
the recording doesn't show you who was present, it just shows you
Right.
who talked.
Oh, interesting. Amir, I believe you're leading today, yes?
Yes. We typically start
Oh.
about 5 minutes past the
5 after.
hour. Yeah.
Actually, I guess it's either Amir, you, or Jeff. And Jeff, you're here too. Yeah, you are here today.
Jeff
Okay,
is
never
here, yeah.
mind. Of course you are. We just talked.
Jeff, would you like to do, would you like to facilitate today? I must have caught him at a bad time. But yeah, I'm more than happy to. My voice is a little hoarse
Okay.
from seeing Rage Against the Machine earlier this week. So
Whoops. Did we lose? Yeah, I'm wondering if I saw Jeff a moment ago, but it looked like
oh, Jeff said he's having audio problems. He will rejoin shortly.
okay, all right. Why don't we have you lead for now, at least
Sure.
if he's having. Oh, hopefully Jeff can fix that. Fix those problems up.
Excellent. Yes, more than happy to. So hello and welcome everybody to the July 14th Securing Critical Projects Working Group meeting. Very happy to see you all. Thank you for joining today. As we normally do, we love to start with introductions, anyone who might be new to the group. I believe we have one person who's new to the group today, so we can go ahead and start with introductions. Not to put you on the spot, but Mihai, would you like to do a quick intro?
Oh, sure. I have been joining in the past several times, like
Oh,
when the
okay.
meeting is formed and so on. So I'm from Google. I joined a little bit before the summit in Austin and have been joining from time to time, but mostly keeping silent. So I joined
Okay.
the supply chain security group at Google now.
Awesome.
And I'll probably working more on SBOM and salsa side.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mihai, and thank you for participating. And sorry, I didn't mean to call you out like that. I just saw you and
It's
thought
all
maybe
good.
I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself. So wonderful. Again, welcome. I'm very excited to have you here. Looks like the first agenda item is the DCOs. David, would you like to talk about that one?
Sure. This is actually pretty straightforward. This is more of a heads up. The TAC agreed at their meeting earlier this week. They want to start enforcing DCOs. They're actually in the charter, but because we're not enforcing them, they don't always happen. I'm trying to be gracious. So it turns out it's not that hard to turn on a requirement and whine at you if you do a pull request and forget to do a DCO. For those of you who don't know what a DCO is, that's the little signed off by at the bottom of every get commit. And what it asserts is that you have the legal right to actually prepare that commit. Either you wrote it or you're providing it from somewhere else and under an appropriate license. So it's basically a super inexpensive way to provide some extra legal protections that a lot of projects use. So just want to give a heads up. The plan is to enforce. If there's a problem that we don't know of, let us know. We're trying to give a little time just in case there's a problem.
What do you mean by can you I mean, not to
basically
me, but
okay, basically
enforcing
when
that
you make
people sign it, or enforcing that if somehow there's a conflict that you're actually going to.
We're talking electronic enforcement. So if you make a pull request and you don't put the signed off by, it'll whine at you and say you can't do the pull request until you fix that.
Right. Okay. So including the DCO, not
including
the DCO itself.
Right. I mean, the point of the DCO is to make it relatively easy. It's a reminder that before you commit, oh wait, do I have the legal right to do this? For most of us, this is not a problem. I mean, hopefully most folks work with your employer, making sure that you're not doing something illegal or, in violation of your employment or contractual, things. But this basically just a reminder and assertion that, yeah, I've checked, it's okay.
Right. But I just want to clarify because I mean, one could also interpret enforcement as okay, you made this commitment with the DCO and there, but you actually didn't have the right, and therefore there's now this problem, and we, the LF, are now going to go after you or your
Oh,
employer.
no. This is purely we're going to turn on Probot, and there's a little flag on GitHub that checks for it and whines at you if you don't do it.
And you mean we're going to turn it on by default on all of the repositories?
That's right. That's right.
GitHub org.
Right. And my experience has been, if you've never done it before, it's say, oh, wait, new step. And then after you do a little bit, you start just doing it everywhere because it's a dash lowercase s option if you use git commit. It's not hard. And please do read the DCO. It's what, a third of a page? And it basically just says, before this commit, I'm asserting I have a legal right to do so. I mean, that's all it is. For those of you who are history buffs, it's a side effect of the SCO attack on the Linux kernel, folks. See me more over drinks if you want to hear the long and sorry tale.
You're causing PTSD to IBMers on this call, David. I'd like you to be a little bit more sensitive to the ramifications of the words that you choose to use in public, sir.
Oh my goodness, yes indeed. You know what? My hat's off to IBM, who really. My understanding is it's not the first time IBM has been. Well, I don't know how to
The
say
subject of legal engagement.
There we go. I think I will not assert anything, but I think other people would view it as extortion. So, in any case, I think a
Some
lot of
large
people.
company had to blaze the trail so that others could follow.
There we go. Anyway, this is a simple mechanism that provides legal protection without a lot of effort once you get used to it. So anyway, thank you. That took more time than expected, but hopefully it was useful.
Excellent. Yeah. What this makes me think of is I do think it makes sense to maybe at some point in the near future. I know we had talked about this, I think, a couple months ago about really kind of dotting our I's and crossing our T's in terms of like everything we need to do with governance, like with our charter and kind of formalizing all of that. So if it sounds good to Jeff and everyone else in the work group, I think it makes sense to maybe take one work group meeting in the near future to once we have, I would say, good guidance of what we need to actually deliver, really just kind of all put our heads together and kind of get all of that taken care of with kind of our governance and some of our administrative tasks that we need to do.
Very good.
Awesome. Okay, next on the agenda is OSS Europe. So that is going to be, if I'm not mistaken, in Dublin, Ireland in from September, I believe it's 13th through the 15th. Should be a good event. I know OSS, what am I trying to say? North America. I almost said Native America, sorry. OSS North America was a fantastic event, and I'm anticipating OSS Europe to be very similar. So do check it out. Looks like they're trying to do an OpenSSF day for that as well. Do we have any kind of up-to-date updates on that, David, about the event itself or OpenSSF day at OSS Europe?
I thought there was a CFP out. I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to be evaluating proposals.
Yeah,
but I don't recall more. I don't recall more. So more information to come, I guess.
Okay. Oh, sorry. What was that you said, Jeff?
Yeah, I didn't see it open yet, but I remember the initial communication to the working groups was, tell the working group that there will be a formal CFP and to prepare proposals for when it happens. It might be fast. It seems like it's coming up.
Yeah, I have a feeling it is.
And
okay.
that's just for the OpenSSF day. I believe the actual conference CFPs are closed and they've been the schedule's been selected.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for the confirmation. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, definitely check out the event. If you can make it, I would recommend it. LF events are great, and they're a good way to see people in person and catch up and learn about all the great initiatives going on. Okay, next on the agenda, we have add leads and contributors to projects / SIGs, referring to the pull request number 56 from the GitHub.
Yeah, I just brought this back up.
Okay.
We had discussed this in a previous meeting. And the idea was just to get some names down before we get to the point of the whole, what was it, charter and things like that, of the more strict definition, but at least get something down so that we can kind of have more focus around each effort that this group is doing. So, and good comment there, David. Yeah, I should add Caleb. I think he seemed to agree that he could do package feeds. So I'll change that to, instead of question marks there, for package feeds to be Caleb as well.
Yeah, and I don't mean to say, hey, you're stuck with it forever. It's just, it's
Yeah, of
easier to
course.
transition leadership when there's a leader.
Yep.
Awesome.
Any other concerns in the meeting on that PR, or the idea of putting those names there?
No objections for me. Looks good.
All right, well, I'll go ahead and get that in.
Awesome. Okay. And then the next thing I threw something up on the agenda from as a continuation of the conversation from 2 weeks ago about this process doc for identifying critical projects. I thought before we dive into that, if there were any other kind of open agenda items or topics that anyone would like to bring forward first before we kind of dive into that. I'd be happy to hear from the work group if you had any either agenda items or things you wanted to talk about before we kind of dive into this.
Not exactly, but I believe we need to move on and start actually executing. So we do need to work on the process doc, but we also need to get it done soon enough. So we do whatever it is we're going to do to make that updated critical list.
Totally agreed. Okay. Okay, then let's go ahead and dive right into it. So one thing that we had talked about.
What's the URL, by the way?
Oh, it's let me share it now. It is also at the top of the notes under key documents.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll share it now, so just to be easier.
Right,
and if you're in the Google group for this working group, you should have full access to the document. But in case you're having issues with access, please let me know. And I'm aware we still need to kind of get that fully figured out to the Google Docs and the permissions and what have we. But if we have the document up, I could even, just for ease, let me see. Oh, I can't share my screen. Okay. Yeah, so the first thing that I added that I would love to have some discussion on and maybe come to a consensus on is we talked a little bit about, what is really the purpose or the objective of this list. And so underneath objective, which I put, a process for nominating, identifying, and prioritizing critical projects, critical open source projects. The reasoning for the list, I put to provide a best effort analysis of quantitative and qualitative research in the open source ecosystem and generate a curated living list of projects deemed critical to organizations and individuals. Open the floor for discussion. If that sounds kind of like what we're looking to accomplish here, I'm more than happy to include thoughts and feedback to improve this.
I think the note
Where
is
are
that
we
this,
storing the, I'm sorry, where are we storing the data that comes from the form that's proposed?
Haven't gotten there yet.
Okay. Sorry, David, I cut you off.
no, that's okay. It is we probably ought to make it clear that this is an initial process instead of maybe a process, an initial process. Because I really liked Jacques' presentation. I'm sorry that everybody didn't get to hear it. I'm hoping that video is going to be out soon. It was a great pitch on I think a better long-term process. I think there's acknowledgement that it's going to take time to get there. So I have no trouble with using this process as the starter, and I think Jacques was proposing the same. So I didn't do that as suggesting, but
Okay, that's fine. We could do an initial, yeah.
okay.
Okay, and then does the reasoning kind of capture really kind of what our intention is for what this is supposed to look like?
I guess one question I have is, are we expected to rank, or are we just coming up with an undifferentiated set, like an unordered set?
Yeah, so the under deliverables, I thought the first phase could be just kind of a list of projects deemed critical, not necessarily prioritized or chopped up in any given way. Kind of like Vicky's example of like 100 greatest hits, to use kind of a music reference. So I think, at least to my understanding, that is the kind of phase one or step one, is to just get a list of projects that we kind of ran through some, some analysis, some feedback, and came up with this list for people to ingest and use how they seem fit. Because I think it's important that we don't be too prescriptive and say like, this is something for you to consume. But again, that's kind of what we're discussing here to figure out and make sure we are in agreement. So David, you have your hand up?
Yeah, first of all, I do want to support not ordering within, mainly because I think we're going to struggle trying to come up with that ordering. We're not Jacques' more sophisticated approach, I think would be better if we were trying to have a more differentiated ordering. But given that we're right now just trying to come up with that rough order, I think undifferentiated is better, just because we're not going to have that sophistication. If we do, may I respectfully suggest not using the word list, which suggests an ordering, but using the word set, which implies that there is not necessarily an ordering.
Okay.
My mathematician is showing.
I like that a lot. Yes. So does and I guess to conceptually, yeah. So the goal is to just kind of come up with the 100 greatest hits, of all time, more or less, as kind of like a phase one. And the reasoning for that is, again, we want to have something that people can use, as a data point, and use for their own use, I guess. And would you all say that captures really what the kind of what the intention of this list is supposed to be, or this set is supposed to be?
Yeah, I think that sounds good to me.
Okay. And again, and thank you, David. I actually like, if you want to either do suggested mode to include suggestions, they are more than welcome. So let me look at the notes. So I'm actually going to put this in the notes for people to comment. And then, yes, and then we started talking about kind of the first step of that, at least how I kind of visualize it, is what I'm calling an ingestion engine, like something that we take, data in to. This is, I guess, goes to your question, Jacques, of if we have any thoughts of kind of what tools or what what to use to actually capture this information. If anyone has any feedback on that, be more than happy to discuss that now.
I mean, for a first pass, let me look at the dates. We're talking about August 15th, so 4 weeks roughly.
Yeah, I like to set very aggressive targets, just so that, you know, I understand that there is a time,
There's
a
an
bit
end
of a
in
time
sight.
crunch. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you like to see the light at the end of the tunnel instead of more tunnel. I know that feeling. Yeah, so I think that's fine. That would, to me, militate in favor of very simple solutions, something like Google Forms plus, backing into a spreadsheet, a Google Sheet.
Yeah.
Just something really simple.
Okay. Yeah, that is what I was leaning towards too. I don't want to be too myopic and just think about what we did in our first iteration, but when I think of what can be done relatively quickly and easily, I even have that here too, a Google form, and that feeds into like a sheet of identified projects being kind of like the first phase. So do we have any thoughts on that? I think GitHub could potentially work in some ways because there's strong kind of change controls and you can kind of see what other people are doing and contributions they're making. But again, we're walking the fine line of, you know, actually having something, a deliverable to show people, but wanting to do it in a way that's effective and can be built on. So do we have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think something where we can work together and edit is going to be necessary. I mean, frankly, a simple table like we did last time is perfectly reasonable. I
Okay.
do think, and I'm gonna have to run before I go. We need to capture rationale.
Okay.
I'm gonna propose that into Google. I
Yes.
don't know if a Google form is the right thing.
Okay.
I mean, or Sheets. Frankly, Sheets I think would be better, but
But you can
Okay.
have the form back into Sheet these days.
okay. But it seems to me in the end, it's a Google Sheet that we want to see and edit.
Right. Yeah. This is just, the elicitation phase, looking for people to give us names.
Yeah. And
Give
that
us
was
names.
yeah, and that was exactly my intention too. I like the idea of, you know, a small project maintainer being able to make their case and say, you know, have the opportunity to be like, hey, I think my project, for example, could be considered critical due to these reasoning, and just really give folks the opportunity to do that. David, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just throw that sort of related to this. I was actually talking with a colleague of mine July 4th, former colleague who works on a couple small projects. And what I actually suggested him is, why don't you go over to the LF, the Critical Infrastructure Initiative, or whatever this badge is, and fill it out and fail. Like, go there, fill out this thing and purposely fail that you aren't satisfying any of this. And let's use that as a mechanism to highlight projects that maybe are falling under the radar and need help. Just as another alternative to how to handle this. It's like, it's already publicized. We've been saying, okay, we've got whatever this LF, whatever the badge is called now, whatever it said, go to, because it's like this entire form that you fill out of, okay, I've got this characteristic and I've got, these committing, I get, so go to the form, add your project and fail the questionnaire. Like, don't fill anything out. Like, say that you don't satisfy any of the things to even get a basic badge. And like, let's use that as a communication mechanism to the LF and the OPS and this working group. Like, here's a project that cared enough to, go and try to fill out a badge, and this doesn't satisfy the badge, but it's an important project. Or like, fill out the minimal, like why this is important, but you don't have any of the characteristics to actually get the LF badge. To like get on the radar of, okay, this needs help, because hey, they don't satisfy any of the requirements for even a basic badge. So that was, it's like, because we the LF has already, I mean, for years, I mean, the previous core infrastructure initiative project, critical infrastructure, whatever the heck that acronym stands for, was publicizing this. So, people, at least there's some awareness with those two, studies and reports of, here is a funnel, here is a portal for the information. So, let's maybe utilize that publicity and that portal as a way to say, not just, here's somebody doing good and hey, they got a badge, but like, here's somebody with here's a project with a problem. Just
I'm going to
bring it
argue the
out there.
counter case. I'm going to enter a counter case. One is which we're sort of roughly focusing on like impact or magnitude. If something happens in the current list is the feeling I get. What you're talking about affects more the frequency or likelihood of a bad thing happening. And they're sort of different things. And, I argue that in a later date, we should estimate both of them. But my real objection is like, I don't think people are going to hang around for a long form. It's really as simple as that. I think they're just going to bail after the first page.
Yeah, but that's what I want them to do. That's the whole point, is you just fill it out so you got the name, and then you don't fill out anything else on that form. You just submit it without anything. And that's the trigger.
I feel as though that might, angry up the people who administer that program to be receiving a bunch of things that were meant to be forwarded onto us. I'm not sure I understand that.
I'm just saying we're looking for other, I mean, I thought part of this was how to get other other data points. I mean, how to get, other places for things that are missing off. I mean, sort of this alpha omega. I mean, like what are, we've got, what the big high, publicity, top of the line projects are, but how to be aware of these other, in addition to, all the great work that you're doing, I mean, that we have for trying to get automated input of this, in addition, instead of, how we can get the sheets thing, what other sources of data can we tap? So it's just a matter of, this is another potential place to gather that input. You take it, not take it. I'm just saying that this is just another place to potentially acquire additional data points, additional input for this projects that are important, that are falling beneath the observability horizon.
Okay, yeah, good suggestion. Thank you, David. Matt, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I think with Jacques, I think primarily we want to make sure we encourage things that are less subjective or more, it feels like gaming, we don't want, we want to invite people to say, I have a project and I'm sincere. I'm not trying to game the system. Please pay attention to me, but we need to give them tools. And, if we might have tools to determine a blast radius or, severity, even for a small blast radius or some things like that fit into our criteria. But we've acknowledged we still want to make it flexible so we can give them, give teams proof, say, pay attention to my project. We use the same tools you did, and I can prove from my ecosystem or from my language or whatever it is that I have a similar blast radius within this domain or this ecosystem. So I don't want to encourage people to game the system by saying fail something to get on the radar. This team, this group has proven through our conversations that we want to be considerate of a larger community, and that we acknowledge that we can never get a perfect set of tools or readouts. So, but so it sounds like the whole conversation leading up to this, we're trying to invite people to say, fill out this form, submit your project, and, maybe give them a set of tools to say, I deserve to be on the radar, to be in this set, if you will.
And it's not just your own project that you submit, it's projects that you think are critical.
Absolutely. Yeah. Many use cases. Yeah. And then, so do we think in terms of just like a general process, it would just be, so there's a Google form where you can basically nominate projects, and then that feeds to this sheet of identified projects that we're calling. Does it make sense to just kind of have it singular, meaning the only way to basically get a project nominated onto this sheet of identified projects is through the Google form as a process, or are there better ways to potentially to do that, or offer multiple ways to get projects basically nominated or onto this kind of identified list? Thank you, Jeff. Take care.
Well, again, it comes, if, as long as they have a way to, if they show up to the work group meeting, I think the form is the best approach, having a single, point of entry, a single path for everybody. They can come to this meeting and plead their case and bring other evidence or whatever, but in the end, they can attach it to a form. I think that having a single pipeline so we can normalize the data and, await it appropriately is key for a small number of people in the working group. So,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that certainly makes sense too, kind of making the process, like you said, like a single pipeline where there's only really one way to do it, and we do it in a way that, is accommodating to all sorts of projects and folks. Okay. Cool. So then, and then we definitely talked about, and then, so I guess then if we could start maybe, I don't know about necessarily building it, but talking about, what this form would look like. So, obviously there would be a space for you to nominate projects. And I feel like maybe we shouldn't constrict ourselves to where you can only nominate like one project per form. Correct? Like if you are familiar with a large list of projects that you think are critical, being able to nominate all of them via one form might be easier than, if you have to go one by one and nominate, only one project at a time. Does that make sense? Sorry if that was confusing.
Yeah, I mean, we may want to judge projects as groups too. So I don't know if we'll end up wanting to have multiple lines for like a set of repos that kind of represent a single project. So
that's a good point too, because like a project like Argo, that's just one word, but you go onto their GitHub and you see that it's actually like multiple projects, multiple GitHubs. So that's a great point, how we think to capture that.
yeah, so I don't know if we'll have like just a generic name that represents multiple, like a group, and that's okay for people to submit. I mean, I think that if that's how people think of it, that's the right way for us to think of it as well.
Okay, and so, basically a space to put the name of the project, probably a GitHub link, just because that's something we'll probably pull up ourselves anyway, so that can make it a little bit easier, as well as rationale or selection criteria. Maybe having like being able to choose from a menu of selection criteria, or like an other for, if you would like to put in your own basically rationale.
Yeah, what about the categories? Or, are we gonna have people like say, is this like which package manager ecosystem it belongs to?
Yeah.
Or language, or the other one that Julie's pointing out, frameworks, languages, libraries, databases.
Yeah.
If people can fill it out, that'll save us some work, right?
It certainly would. Yeah. Actually, after looking into Julia's presentation and her PowerPoint about, just like you said, the frameworks, languages, libraries, databases. I mean, if that is already a pretty well established kind of structure for categorizing open source infrastructure, then maybe we could just use that and call it a day, and not.
Yeah, I mean, all these boxes can be optional on the form, and the more columns we have that we're looking at, I think the better. Like, I don't know that we should.
That's true. Yeah, and the more we can capture up front from the actual nominator, the better. But I guess we'll just have to walk that fine line where, if I have to fill out pages, then I'm not going to do it, right? So just make it like as easy as possible. Okay. Does anything else come to mind of either how we could capture, or what information we could capture or ask for with the form like this?
I see Matt has his hand up.
Oh, yes, Matt.
Yeah, so I mean, so it got me thinking, you were talking about granularity of project relative to number of repos. But I think it's also relative to packages. So will we have a way to say, give us an SBOM for Argo, for Tecton, or something, things that we even reference here in OpenSSF, saying, here's my SBOM, and you can use the composite components for that software to help weight, lower level building blocks, their severity. So if we see like Tecton and Argo be both use the same libraries to do signing or something like that, then that should be, somehow cross-referenced or additive in some way, right?
Yeah, deps.dev comes to mind as a tool that could potentially be used. Jacques, do you have any thoughts on that, or on Matt's point?
Yeah, I was just going to say, probably a good source for that would be the Harvard Census rankings, because they've already sort of done that heavy lifting to find dependencies of dependencies of dependencies, that sort of thing. And the really nice thing about the Harvard data is that it's based on basically telemetry from software composition analysis on sort of private code bases. So basically what open source software is being pulled in for applications across multiple vendors, which is really useful sort of field data. But in terms of stuff that's based on like the depth of the dependency and bumping those up or using that as a heuristic, yeah, deps.dev is a good source. There's the caveat that it has limited coverage.
Yeah, I agree. The Harvard study comes to mind heavily, and every time we meet in my back of my mind. But it goes back to additive weighting. So we acknowledge that there has to be willingness, and in by submission of form, you're willing to participate. You're asking for help. Those type of things. So in addition to any base weightings we have, that kind of indirectly adds to a weighting to the set of these dependencies. An indicator that there also is a willing set of contributors, either knowingly at a top level, saying, I know this package is important, I submit that package again, or I'm submitting Tecton, and indirectly we can say, oh, we see that Tecton is highly dependent on the signing library, and that adds to the weight again, type of thing. So
sure. That would be a lot of work to do by hand.
Yeah. Well, I defer to you in all things in terms of statistical weighting and things like that. So
that's very kind of you. I'll remember that when the implementation time comes around.
Okay. Where is this? Okay, wonderful. So, are there any other thoughts on how this basically this ingestion engine, this form, would look like or ask for, or any thoughts on how basically how that would feed into the sheet of identified projects?
I think one thing is that we'll want to link to the sheet so people can look to see if what they're about to suggest is already there. Since it'll be a Google form, it won't be able to do something smart, like say, do a type ahead search to show you that you're about to nominate GCC for the 15th time.
Okay, thank you. That's a good point.
Which, very, very deserving of being nominated 15 times, of course. But, hard to rank 15 versions of GCC.
Right. Okay. Any other thoughts or notes on that?
Do the software repositories, the rankings in the software repositories, do they have anything to do with these rankings?
You mean the download counts or something else?
Exactly. Because I know like NPM has all that information available, or had all that information available.
Yeah, NPM has it, I believe, PyPI, and Ruby Gems, you can download a dump of the database that contains download counts, because I've done some stuff with that.
And as far as there's also
Um,
Repology also has an API for like normal packages as well, which can like consolidates everything, all the like Divi and Gentoo, all of them.
Cool.
Yeah,
Um,
so I think,
oh yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
I mean, I think there'll be a step. So I think on the form, we're not going to ask people to type that in, but I think there's going to be a step between A and B here, the ingestion engine and the identified projects, where there are columns that we need to fill out based on data like the Harvard ranking and things like that. So the list there under B, poll count data, Harvard census data, et cetera, should probably include that as well. And hopefully there's a way we can automate that through the
There is a
issues.
isn't there a criticality tool that we have in OpenSSF?
Yeah, the criticality score as well.
Yeah, yeah. So in kind of like our test run of this that we did a couple months or a while ago now, it seems, we certainly use that as what we called selection criteria or justification. So if it's come up pretty consistently, let's say on the Harvard research, then that is a valid selection criteria. And I think we also we had poll count data as another selection criteria too, because we had folks nominate projects that basically they just generated a list of the top Docker pull or the top Docker downloads, what projects, and recommended some of those, and a lot of those cross-referenced with stuff on the Harvard study, criticality score, for example. So we definitely do want to capture selection criteria, or why, a why basically, and lots of times I think a probably an easy way that we could at least do some automated analysis of this is seeing what projects come up on multiple selection criteria. So if something comes up in the Harvard study, as well as the criticality score, as well as poll count data, then that ideally would raise its ranking, or
It's kind of like a set overlap Venn diagram type of approach. That's what you-
yeah, exactly. So that's why I definitely think we should be capturing the why, or the selection criteria, and have like maybe have a menu of some really common ones. So like the Harvard Census 2 or criticality score, poll count data, and then but also have that room for other justification in case, as David E was mentioning earlier, we want to also try and maybe find ways to capture some of those projects that fly under the radar, and this could be a good way to capture that. So yeah, does that give you some insight on that, what you were saying earlier, Randall?
Yes, it does. I was also going to add something that I forgot.
No worries. If you think of it, just shout out or raise your
Jock
hand.
has his hand up. I think he had something to add.
Yep, Jack.
Yeah, I'm glad you got to me, because I'm basically a sentient jar of Jello at the moment, having flown from the other side of the world earlier this week. I was so keen on making that joke that I can't remember what I was trying to say. Oh yes, I'm concerned. I'm a little concerned that like what we're talking about is all great, but it's going to be a lot of manual work. So filling out the columns for the Harvard census ranking, filling out columns for criticality score, and filling out stuff like download counts. Like somebody's got to go and pull those numbers or write software to do it. And that sort of starts to interfere with the goal of getting a quick and dirty number list, a quick and dirty set rather,
Set.
to get the ball rolling.
Mhm.
That's my concern, because nothing personal. It ain't me. Not it.
Mhm. Yep, that's a good point. I mean, we do want to make this less less manually intensive as possible. But I think if we're able to get help from, you know, the community, for example, people who are nominating projects, to do some of this stuff as they get involved to nominate a project, hopefully that'll ease some of that manually intensive work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And hopefully as we iterate more, you know, maybe we'll find, you know, clever ways. Thankfully, we're in the room with a lot of really clever people who can figure out ways to automate things. So maybe as we
Well, I'm
iterate,
here
we
too.
Randall, yeah, did you remember what you were thinking of?
Yes, kind of. I was gonna say, couldn't we just make this a GitHub repo and make people do PRs against the GitHub repo and automate everything else, like criticality scores and everything?
That's a good point. I mentioned GitHub earlier in the meeting of a potential, basically I can't think either, but yeah, using GitHub. But I don't know. I don't know GitHub very well, but it could be something we could migrate to, or even do from, you know, as we start to do this.
I do a lot of packaging for a lot of different people, so it's actually very easy to do, and a lot of this is already integrated. So a lot of it can actually already, like OpenSSF and GitHub both have a lot of tools. I think even Criticality Score has an app already.
Okay. Well, could I potentially ask you to do something, Randall? um,
Absolutely.
so I have an action item set to have this, to just have like a draft template of this form done for our next meeting, which is in 2 weeks on the 28th. But if you could, basically what you just said, so take a look at what we're trying to do, and maybe get a very basic idea of what that would look like if we just did it all on GitHub.
Yeah, they even have forms now on GitHub too.
Okay. So yeah, if you could maybe give us some basic insight on that by the next meeting, and then if
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
sounds good, maybe we can work with you on formalizing that a little bit and actually implementing it as part of this process, if that's something you'd be
Yeah, absolutely.
okay
I
with.
can do that.
Okay, awesome. Jeff, you've had your hand up for a minute. What's going on?
I was going to say, to Jacques' point, you know, if we get a lot, if our list is really long and we want to maybe like take a pass first of whittling it down, and then when we did this the last time, it wasn't that hard to like kind of look up some of these stats in real time going through. But if the list isn't that long, so we might have to do a staged approach or something like that. But yeah, I certainly think trying to get these numbers for the ones that we're looking at is worthwhile.
Mhm. Awesome. Yeah, and I would agree, Jeff. I think even though it was pretty rough, the first time that we kind of went through this, I mean, it wasn't perfect, but I think it was good. I mean, we saw a lot of the same projects coming up, and I think that is a pretty easy way to determine these projects that, you know, when you say why is it critical, well, it's like, well, it comes up in every conversation about criticality that we've had. So being able to justify it a little bit better. But yeah, and like what we're attempting to do now in terms of just formalizing it a little bit more, having a little bit more of a process, I think will definitely go a long way. So for action items for 2 weeks from now, I will have a draft template done for for the first part of the ingestion engine. And then we're also gonna hopefully hear from Randall and discuss maybe just migrating everything and doing it all on GitHub. Thank you, Randall. Okay, so we've got about 5 minutes left. I like to keep the end of meetings open for just general discussion. If there was something that maybe someone didn't get to, or didn't get a chance to voice their opinion, we'd love to hear from you. As well as, I guess, any general project updates that either are directly or indirectly related to the work group. We'd love to hear from you. So the floor is open to anyone who would like to bring up a topic.
Do we want to set any agenda for next time ahead of time, like continuing this same topic?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's set for the next meeting's agenda. Let's definitely talk about this. I would say at least for maybe half the session, we can kind of hammer some of this out. And yeah, I would totally agree with that.
Can I be added to the Google group? Because I'm not in the Google group.
Yes, absolutely.
Send my email in the chat.
Yes, yeah, and I'll forward it to Jory, who has been helping us with a lot of that. I know she's on vacation for until I think the very beginning of August. So, but there's other people that I think can help with this. So, but yeah, we'll get you on that working group list. Actually, I'm not sure. Maybe Matt, you know this. Is there a way that you can auto
I
join?
think it's automatic.
Yeah.
Chris, I think it's automatic. I think you just join the mailing list and you're automatically added.
That sounds right. Yeah. Oh, and Jeff just shared that. Thank you, Jeff.
That's fair,
Yes.
because I joined no mailing list because I got like millions.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't blame you. But yeah, I believe joining the mailing list is the way to get into the Google group, which will make a lot of the things a lot easier. But yeah, thank you, Chris, for that. Do we have any other thoughts or topics or ideas? Okay, I have a very quick one. Just let me just grab that link real quick. We just, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, OSTIF, Open Source Technology Improvement Fund, we released another audit report. This one was of the CNCF project CubeEdge. And I thought it went really well. We found some issues, fixed some of them, actually most of them, and then incorporated some new fuzzers and wrote some new fuzzers for the project so that they can, continue to monitor and find vulnerabilities in their project. So if you'd like more details, the full report is at the bottom of that link. But yeah, just thought I'd just share this work that we're doing. We've got a number of other audits and work coming out real soon, so I'll be sure to keep the work group updated. One last thing I thought of is I believe there's a town hall on Monday. Is that right? An OpenSSF town hall?
Oh, I'm behind on my email.
I don't blame you. Me too. Let me double check my email here.
I don't see it on my calendar. So according to Jacques, well, that means it doesn't exist.
Let's see. Yeah. I don't know if it's been finalized, but I thought I saw an email saying that they were aiming to have a town hall on Monday, July 18th. Okay, well, I guess if we don't have any insight on that, maybe we'll just look out for a announcement or something like that. Awesome. Do we have anything else before we adjourn for today? No. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you all, everyone, for fantastic discussion, for your contributions. Really appreciate it. And I look forward to picking up this conversation in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Have a good one, everyone. Bye-bye.